Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to the February 25th, 2020 meeting of the City of Waco Plan Commission. Before we begin, I'll outline the procedure that we will follow for our public hearing. As each agenda item is called, the applicant or his or her representatives and persons for the request will be allowed to speak. Then persons against the request will be allowed to speak. If there is opposition to the request, the applicant will be allowed to make a short rebuttal. All persons wishing to speak need to come to the microphone at the front of the room, and that's right over here. Please state your name and your address for the record. All statements should be relevant to agenda item and be limited to 3 minutes. If there are several persons in favor of or opposed to a request, we encourage you to allow 1 or 2 persons to act as a spokesperson for the group. If you like, a spokesperson for a group may request that the group stand and be recognized. While public discourse is very important to the Commission, we have to maintain order in the meeting so that all persons may be heard and city business may be conducted. If so directed by me, the Sergeant at Arms shall remove from this meeting any person while addressing the Commission or while attending the Commission meeting for making personal, impertinent, or slanderous remarks, someone who becomes boisterous, or making unauthorized remarks from the audience, such as the stomping of feet, whistles, yelling, or similar demonstrations. The Commission members have reviewed each of these items in a previous work session. The recommendations we make tonight to the City Council will be based on the work session and the information provided by staff, as well as any additional information presented here tonight. After completing the hearing on each item, the Commission will consider action on the item. The action taken tonight on these items will be in the form of a recommendation to the City Council. The City Council will also conduct a hearing on these items, which will be held on Tuesday, March 17th, 2020, at 6 p.m. here in the Bosque Theater of the Waco Convention Center, 1000 Washington Avenue. The record and recommendation of the Plan Commission and new testimony will be considered by the Council at that time. Mr. Peters, did we receive any registration cards?
No.
No, okay. The first item of our agenda is approval of the minutes of our January 22nd, 2020 work session and our January 28th, 2020 business meeting. Are there any changes or addition to these minutes? All right. Seeing none, they will stand approved as presented. All right. Our first item to take up today, get my agenda, are our subdivisions. Mr. Peters, on items 1 through 4, what is the city's recommendation in this case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a public hearing on the following subdivision plats. Final plat of the Cottonwood Creek Marketplace Edition, lots 1 through 5, Block 1. Final plat and construction plans of the Park Meadows Edition, Phase 4. Final plat of the South Fork Edition, Phase 10. And then final plat of the South Fork Edition, Phase 20 and Phase 23, Lot 2, Block 19. Staff does recommend approval of these plats subject to the conditions that are included in your packets.
All right. Is the applicant or his or her representative available and desiring to speak on behalf of any of these first 4 final plats? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of or in opposition on any of these 4 final plats on the agenda? All right, hearing none, we will close the public hearing. I believe city staff's recommendation was approval with conditions. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we recommend approval of item A1 through 4 based on staff recommendation.
All right.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on these 4 items? All right. Hearing none, would you please poll the commission?
Briscoe?
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Mayfield?
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Vickers?
Yes.
Wade? Yes. Borderoot?
Yes. Carries, and all 4 are approved with conditions. Moving now to item number 5 and item number 6, preliminary plats. Mr. Peters, what's the city recommendation on these?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the Commission, this is a public hearing on the preliminary plat of the Springs Edition, ETJ, and then preliminary plat of the New Road Development Edition. Staff has reviewed these plats. These are resubmittals of plats that were approved with conditions last month and recommends approval of these for this month.
Okay. Is the applicant or his or her representative available to speak on either of these preliminary plats? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of or opposed to or give any comment on these two? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing, and the recommendation by the city is approval without conditions. Do we have a motion?
I move we approve the preliminary plats A5 and 6 per staff recommendation.
Got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion? All right, please poll the commission.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Wade. Borderoot.
Yes. Motion carries unanimously, and both items are approved. Moving now to our zoning applications. Item number 7Z20-11, what's the city's recommendation in this case?
Mr. Chair, before we start, number 7, items 7 through 12 are all special permits that have the same findings for recommendation. So I'd like to read those into record one time and then go through each individual case. So the findings for recommendation of approval from planning services are that the proposed use is consistent with the comprehensive plan, that the proposed use is compatible with the appropriate and orderly development of the area in which is located, that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties because of traffic congestion, noise, fumes, vibrations, or any other characteristics than any use permitted in the zoning district without the grant of the special exception, and that available community facilities and services, including the road system providing access to the proposed use, are adequate for the proposed use. So for item 7, which is case Z 2011, this is a public hearing on a request from Katrina Dyer at the property located at 3425 Pewitt Drive for a special permit for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district. We did mail out 19 notices on this one and had 0 returned. And Planning Services does recommend approval based on the findings that I read in the record, which are required for granting of a special permit per section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
All right. Is the applicant or his or her representative available and present and desiring to speak on this case? Is there anyone here available to speak and wishing to speak on this case? All right. Seeing none, do we have a motion? We'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I'd like to move to approve B7 for approval.
Got a motion?
Second.
A motion and a second for approval based on staff findings and conditions. Any discussion? All right, please poll the commission.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Wade.
Yes. All right, motion carries and it is approved. Moving now to item number 8, Z-20-12. What is city staff's recommendation in this case?
Yes, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on request from Back Arrow Investments, a property located at 3107 Lasker Avenue, for a special permit for short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning. On this one, we mailed out 18 notices with 0 return. Planning Services recommends approval of special permit subject to the special provisions and conditions and based on the findings required for granting of a special permit per section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
All right. Is the applicant or his or her representative available to speak on this case? Is there anyone here available? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to come down? Yes, ma'am. If you just state your name and your address.
Good evening. Mary Gonzalez, 3104 Lasker Avenue. I received this letter from something about the 3107. I'm not really sure what it's about.
Okay. Mr. Peters, do you feel comfortable addressing this?
So what's your address, ma'am? I'm sorry.
3104 Lasker Avenue.
Okay, So you received a notice of this public hearing. They are, the property owner at 3107 Lasker is asking for approval of a special permit for a short-term rental, which is not allowed by right. It has to be approved through a public hearing process. So this is an opportunity for you to voice any concerns or input into that request from your neighboring property.
Okay, so what I'm understanding is that they have a house they want to rent behind them?
Yes.
Okay. Well, to me, I don't know what to answer. I know which house it is,
Okay,
but can I give my opinion?
please do.
To me, it doesn't really matter. The people that live in that house they're quiet. The neighborhood that I live in, I've been there for 15 years, so I don't have any disturbance or anything. So to me, it doesn't really bother me. They keep to themselves.
Maybe just one thing to be clear, it is a short-term rental versus a long-term rental, so it is less than 30-day rentals is the difference
Okay.
between maybe that and the current residences of the property.
Right, okay, well, I don't know how to answer that part, so,
Okay.
all right.
So, ma'am, is it fair to say that you are not opposed to this request?
Do it.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
We appreciate your input. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak on this particular request? Yes, sir. Just state your name and address.
Sure. Good evening. Matthew Polk, 2928 Cumberland. Just a couple of blocks kind of around the corner from the property in question. I'm here with a rather large group living on Cumberland and Maple who are primarily concerned with item number 11 on the agenda, but this one is not far away, and frankly, the volume of multiple requests is especially concerning. So I think, would you just raise your hand if you're supportive of that? So we're all in agreement that the short-term rental, especially the type 2 that does not require, in my understanding, the owner to be present on the property is particularly concerning and particularly in contradiction to the nature of the residential neighborhood. We have concern about the level of investment and commitment in the neighborhood and to the community by the property owners and the potential impact on those of us who live nearby, and whether the property owners or their designated operators would be, responsive to any concerns. So I think that these concerns are amplified by the fact that we're looking at multiple applications for the same type of usage within a fairly small radius in what has historically been a very residential neighborhood. So to me, there's a distinction between a type 1 and type 2. There are a number of properties in the neighborhood that have garage apartments, for example. If there were a long-term homeowner who were interested in renting that out and who had established a commitment to the neighborhood and to the community, that would be one thing, and a number of these folks who are here tonight would fall into that category. But folks who have recently purchased property, who have no established commitment to the community or to the neighborhood, looking to, do short-term rentals without occupying the property is a significant concern to those of us with children who consider the neighborhood our home and a neighborhood of neighbors, not of, short-term occupants. So to be clear, we are against both this application and the one for item number 11 on the agenda. Thank you.
And if anyone is here and feels similarly in opposition to this particular request, do you mind standing up so the commission can see who you are? Okay. Oh, I'm sorry, ma'am. Do you have?
I am here for 3107 Lasker.
Okay. All right. Thank you so much. Now, though the applicant did not speak at the beginning, would the applicant like a chance to present a rebuttal to the comments that have been provided tonight?
My name is Deanna, and my husband and I own the property at 3107 Lasker.
Okay. Oh, ma'am, do you mind giving us your full name and address before you begin your comments?
Deanna
Thank you.
Collinsworth. We own Back Arrow Investments. The address is 3107 Lasker.
Okay.
We have a commitment to this community. My husband and I both went to Baylor. We want to have a home to come to when we come down here and we go to these games that we bring our children to, and we're raising them to be Baylor fans and be around this community. We also would like to make that home an investment property as well, so that we can recoup some of our cost of the home when we are not there. We are doing an extensive renovation of the property and bringing it up to code, making the home look beautiful. If you drive down that street, you'll see that the outside of the house has been painted, all new electrical, new plumbing. We're trying to help the community as well, not have a commitment. We have children as well. We want y'all to be able to keep that in your neighborhoods and keep that feeling. And that's my understanding of why this special permit has to be allowed, and we have to go through this process. We have a designated operator. We're a phone call away as well. We also have construction people that we can call. We have plumbers, a local plumber, local electrician, all of that whenever there's an issue. So does anybody have any other questions?
Any questions for the applicant?
I just want y'all to know we want to keep it a community, and that is one of our, and better the community as well. Okay.
Thank you, ma'am. All right. Is there anyone, well, I suppose that was our rebuttal, so we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion in this case?
Chairman, I move or recommend approval of this request.
Have a motion, do we have a second? May die on the vine without a second.
Second.
Oh, got a second. We've got a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion on the motion? All right, please poll the commission.
Briscoe?
No.
Gomez?
Yes.
Harris?
No.
Mayfield?
Yeah.
No.
Vickers?
No.
Wade?
No.
Orderud?
No. All right, the motion does not carry. Do we have any other motions? So far, we have a motion to approve that was denied. Do we need a motion to disapprove, to send a recommendation?
It will effectively go to city council without a motion for approval.
Without a recommendation?
Without a recommendation,
Yeah,
yes.
My opinion on what we're doing here is that they didn't appoint us to punt, so we need a motion the other direction.
Yeah.
I make a motion to disapprove the request based on item number 3, the findings which relate to the proposed use would not be more objectionable to the neighboring properties than any other use permitted in the zoning district. Based on the presence of the individuals here, they've indicated it would be objectionable, so I move to disapprove.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion on this motion? All right, if not, please poll the commission.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Mayfield? Ramos?
Yes.
Vickers?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries, and it is denied, the application. All right, moving to number 9, Z-20-14. What is the recommendation of city staff?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on request from Taylor Allen at property located at 1920 Washington Avenue for a special permit for a short-term rental type 3 in O2 zoning. We mailed out 27 notices and had 3 returned with concerns. Planning Services recommends approval of the special permit subject to the special provisions and conditions and based on the findings required for granting of a special permit per section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
Is the applicant or his or her representative available and willing to speak at this time?
Taylor Allen, address 2605 Washington. I represent the owner of the apartment complex. Carriage House was built in 2018. It's designed to be a really great gated community for its residents. There's a few front-facing on Washington Avenue buildings that we're going to turn those into short-term rental. We plan on only doing up to 5 per the ordinance the ordinance allows. So we have a full-time management person on staff to help. We've got maintenance in line. They're going to be really, really nice, furnished really, really well. So I think it's going to attract really great residents. And people can park on the street or park inside the gated community there. And I think it's only going to add value to the community.
Do we have any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you, sir. Is there anyone else here that would like to speak in favor of the application? Okay, is there anyone here who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Anyone like to speak in any which way on the application? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion for approval based on staff findings and conditions.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please poll the commission.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Borderoud.
Yes. Motion carries, and it is approved. All right, we will move now to item number 10, Z-20-15. What is the recommendation of city staff in this case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Deanna Baxley at property located at 2400 Ethel Avenue for a special permit for short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning. We mailed out 20 notices on this one and had 2 returned in favor of the request. Planning Services recommends approval of the special permit subject to the special provisions and conditions and based on the findings required for granting a special permit per section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
All right. Is the applicant or his or her representative available and willing to speak in this case? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the recommendation based on the findings and conditions of staff.
Okay, we've got a motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please poll the commission.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Ramos,
Yes.
Vickers,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Borderoud.
Motion carries, and it is approved. Turning now to item number 11, Z-20-16. What is the recommendation of city staff in this case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Jennifer Joplin at property located at 3015 Maple Avenue for a special permit for a short-term rental type 2 in R1B zoning district. We mailed out 11 notices on this one, had 1 returned in favor, 5 returned in opposition, and then we also received an email in opposition. Planning Services recommends approval of special permit subject to the special provisions and conditions and based on the findings required for granting a special permit per section 28-122 of the zoning ordinance.
All right, is the applicant or his or her representative available and willing to speak on this case? Yes, please. podium. If you would just state your name and address, sir.
Doug and Jennifer Jopling at 3015 Maple Avenue. And also our daughter, Madeline. This is a property that we have purchased with our daughter. She's 26, she'll be 27 in May. She works on a ship in Hawaii for 6 months at a time. She's been doing that for 5 to 6 years, and she wants to move back to Texas. She's going to be probably doing this another 1 to 2 years. And we're native Texans. She's a 7th generation Texan. We're from the DFW area. My family settled the area around Arlington back in the 1850s. Madeline wants to move back and be in Waco. Last time she was on her leave, she was in Waco looking for homes. Toured some, and then when she got back on the ship, she sent us an email saying, hey, here's a house. I don't know how I missed it, but it looks like it might be one I'd really be interested in. So we made an appointment with the realtor, Jennifer and I did, because Madeline was already back in Hawaii. Came and looked at it. We've got some experience buying homes ourselves over the years, and it looked like it was in decent enough condition to go ahead and purchase with her. She gave half of the money down for the down payment, and we're splitting the cost of renovating it. So far, everything inside that needed to be done has been done. The outside, they just started repairing the stucco today, and the house will be painted probably in the next 3 weeks, I would imagine. Madeline will be coming home here fairly soon. It's a home that she wants to come and stay in when she's on her leave, which is about 8 weeks when she comes home. But she will be back on the ship for 6 months, working every day. So to be able to defray the cost of owning a home, we needed to be able to lease it, but you can't lease a home for a 12-month period and then be able to stay in it whenever she's coming back. So that's why we needed to look at doing Airbnb type short-term rental so it's available for her. She will probably be staying here because it's inhabitable right now. I would imagine the next couple weeks you'll see her at the home staying there. She's got some other things she has to do, get certifications while she's back. Then she's got to get back on her ship because they're going to dry dock it in the month of April and May, so she's got to be back earlier this time to do that. We wanted to come back to Texas. This was an opportunity for us to help her do that. She's got a boyfriend who lives in Long Island, New York. We're hoping that as it gets more serious, that she would want to make her home back here in Texas.
Okay.
This was a way of helping her to make that dream happen.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? Right. Thank you. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in favor of this application? Okay. Seeing none, is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this request? Yes, sir. If you would please state your name and address.
Good evening. My name is Jeremy Cordaweg, and I have a residence at 3000 Cumberland Avenue. I currently reside at 3201 Maple Avenue. I received this notice approximately a week or two ago regarding this, and just a couple of comments. First of all, I would echo what my friend and neighbor Matthew Polk has said regarding the previous item regarding changes in our neighborhood, particularly the volume of short-term rental applications and the concerns that we have. I have a 2-year-old daughter, and I have a number of residents who live in the immediate neighborhood who have a large number of children who they allow to be in the neighborhood quite freely. And we've enjoyed that privilege of knowing our neighbors and knowing who we can be accountable to if there are any problems without needing to involve city resources. And the short-term rental, specifically in the heart of the neighborhood, not on one of the fringes of the neighborhood, would significantly change the dynamics of who's in the neighborhood, who we know is in the neighborhood at any given time. And we know that short-term rental options do not have very good options for background checks and information about the residers who might be only there for 2 or 3 days at a time. And although most can be great, it's the outliers that are the ones that change the dynamics of the neighborhood and affect the community collegiality. Furthermore, it would also, not having someone who can directly respond to an issue at 2 o'clock in the morning without a call to the local authorities, or can address it right away directly with a homeowner who can be on the property within a matter of minutes, and not a property manager who does not have financial backing and neighborhood association and neighborhood community. It takes away the personal nature of what our neighborhood is and what our neighborhood agrees for. And so that's primarily one of the reasons why I oppose this as well too. We've circulated a petition that includes 100% of the houses, and I can submit that as well to the commission, opposing this within 200 feet of this property that's opposing this proposal.
How many individuals signed that petition, please?
Is it okay if I grab that petition?
Yeah,
Mr.
yeah,
Chairman?
absolutely. Who signed on behalf of the church?
Ken
Okay.
Kilheffer, the church.
Okay, do you mind, here, I'll take it from you. Has the city had a chance to review that?
We have not.
Do we have a copy machine
No, not here, yeah.
provided, scanned later? Commission to review. Is there anyone else here who would like to speak in opposition to this request? Yeah, just come on up.
Jennifer Dickey, 3019 Maple. Thank you for allowing the community to be a part of this. And I think we want to say, we really would welcome your daughter. This is not a personal thing. This doesn't feel individualized or personal. I think that we're intentionally living in that neighborhood because we love that neighborhood. And I have a 2.5-year-old daughter whose bedroom is right next door to that home. And so when your lovely daughter, which I believe she's probably very lovely, is not there, it feels really vulnerable to think my daughter is the home next to her is people we don't know. And some of what Dr. Quarterweg just said, I feel the same way, that it's hard to know how to get help when we need help. And we really care about 76707 in this neighborhood, and we're committed to this neighborhood. So we want to create as much long-term commitment in this neighborhood as we can. That's all.
Thank you. Any questions?
I have one. In terms of the church, the signature from the administrator, was that the consensus of the pastor as well, or was that an individual consensus?
He was signing it as a representative.
Okay.
So that's how he communicated it to me.
Okay.
A person in his church communicated to him. He contacted me. We had a conversation. He said, I'd like to sign the petition as the administrator.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. We've had 2 members speak in opposition. Would anyone who feels similarly to them please stand to let the commission know that they also are opposed to this request? Okay, thank you. All right. All right. Hearing no more individuals wanting to speak in opposition, we will give the applicant a chance to make a rebuttal if they'd like to.
As far as long-term neighbors.
Sir, if you don't mind directing, we appreciate that you are taking the concerns of the
Because
community
I
very
thought they were the
seriously.
ones most concerned, so.
If you don't mind addressing those concerns to the commission, the
Sure,
decision
okay.
makers in this case. Thank you.
Our daughter is a fine, upstanding person, and she wants to make this her home. She told us Waco is where she wanted to move back to. Again, I said before, we want to encourage that for even selfish reasons, because we want our daughter to be close to us again. We are an hour and 45 minutes away. We live in DFW, so we can get down here quickly. However, we will have property management people handling things for us. We are experienced in that manner because we have owned apartment complexes before. We have owned single-family homes before, and we know how to get problems taken care of. My understanding was you had to be 500 feet from another one of these, and I don't think there's one that's closer than 500 feet. As far as who would be renting, we would have a strict criteria. I think there could be no more than 3 cars. Well, this house has a 2-car carport and more parking behind that before you get to a gate, so there's no parking that people be having to do on the street. This house was rented before to a tenant. It was not occupied by the owners. We bought it from an owner who lived in California, and they'd rented it out to someone who'd been there for, I don't know what they did for background checks on them, but if there is a problem, we'll give our phone number where they can contact us directly. I don't think there's going to be many issues. We're not going to allow pets there. I think there's a maximum of maybe 6 people that could stay at any one time, and they can't bring other people over. We get to review anybody who rents as well as they can review the property, so it works both ways. We would not allow this to be leased out on a short term to anybody who's ever had any issues within that environment.
Thank you, sir. Any questions for the applicant? All right, thank you. All right, we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion in this case?
I make a motion for disapproval based on the criteria stated in the statute that the proposed use would not be more objectionable to neighboring properties for traffic congestion or other use characteristics than any other use permitted in the zoning district. Based on the opposition that was voiced here, that criteria is not met, so I'd move for disapproval.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any discussion among the commission?
These type 2 short-term rentals are not, I think the situation is that the owner does not occupy the property. Both of these houses that we've heard about tonight could be very easily rented out on a long-term basis by the owner. There would be no background check. There would be no recourse to the neighbors. If there was a problem with the renter, they're stuck with what they get. The situation we have here, typically there is a background check. There is a recourse to the neighbors if there are problems with the tenant. To me, to me, it just seems like this is a much better deal than what they could do right now with no permit. I mean, that's why I'm going to vote against the motion.
Any other comment or discussion before we vote? Okay, please poll the commission.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Mayfield?
No.
Ramos?
Yes.
Vickers?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Orderud?
Yes. Motion carries. The request is denied. Move now to item 12Z-20-19. What is the city's recommendation in this case?
And Mr. Chair, just for clarification on those 2 that, well, all the cases, but specifically those 2 that were recommended for disapprovals, those are recommendations to the City Council. City Council will have a public hearing at their March 17th meeting. The recommendation for disapproval does trigger a supermajority requirement for City Council to approve those. For case, item 12, case 19, this is a public hearing on request from Jim Peavy at property located at 4900 Steinbeck Bend Road for a special permit for a vet clinic, kennels, boarding, and crematorium in R1B zoning and C3 zoning. We mailed out 4 notices on this one and had 0 return. Planning Services recommends approval of this special permit subject to the special provisions and conditions and based on the findings required for granting of a special permit per section 28.122 of the zoning ordinance. And I would like to say this is an existing facility that's had a special permit for numerous years, and this is transferring it over to a new owner.
Is the applicant or his or her representative available and willing to speak on behalf of this? Sir, if you just state your name and address for us.
Aaron Lyde. I'm from out of town, but I'll be moving here soon as I purchase this property. It's at 4900 Steinbeck Bend.
Okay.
I'm a veterinarian, so I'll just be taking over the facility.
And it's currently a veterinarian operation, is that correct?
It is.
Okay. Any questions for this applicant? All right. Thank you, sir. We appreciate it. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak in favor of this application? Does anyone like to speak in opposition to this application? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Please poll the commission.
Would you like a motion?
I need a motion. Sorry about that. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve.
Second.
All right. Any discussion? Now, please poll the commission. I apologize.
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Mayfield?
Yes.
Ramos?
Yes.
Vickers?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Yes. Motion carries, goes as an approval to recommendation to the City Council. All right, taking up now number 13, Z-20-20. What is city staff's recommendation in this case?
Chair, members of the commission, this is a public hearing on a request from Matt D. Fothery at the property located at 910 Webster Avenue to rezone from M2 to C4. We mailed out 20 notices on this one and had 0 return. Planning Services recommends approval of the zone change request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is in conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and the Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in C4 zoning. 3, the area has been transitioning from industrial uses to commercial mixed uses. And 4, there is C4 zoning in the vicinity of subject property.
All right. Is the applicant or his or her representative available to speak in favor of this request? Is there anyone here to speak in favor of or in opposition to this request? All right, seeing none, we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Move we recommend approval of the rezoning from M2 to C4 in case Z-20-20.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Any discussion? And if not, please poll the commission.
Briscoe?
Yes.
Gomez?
Yes.
Harris?
Yes.
Mayfield? Yes. Ramos?
Yes.
Vickers?
Yes.
Wade?
Yes.
Porter?
Yes. Motion carries, and we recommend approval. Turning now to item number 14, Z-20-21. What is city staff's recommendation in this case?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, members of the commission. This is a public hearing on a request from Jordan Ogden at property located at 401 South 11th Street to rezone from M2 to C4. We mailed out 8 notices on this one and had 0 return. Planning Services recommends approval of the zone change request based on the following findings. 1, the proposed zoning is conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan of the Imagine Waco, a plan for greater downtown. 2, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to provide for uses allowed in C4 zoning. 3, the area has been transitioning from industrial uses to commercial mixed uses. And 4, the C4 zoning in the vicinity of subject property.
All right, is the applicant or his or her representative available and willing to speak in favor of this application? Is there anyone here willing to speak in favor of or in opposition to this application? Hearing none, we will close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
Mr. Chair, I make a motion to approve the change zoning M2 to C4 based on staff findings.
Second.
Got a motion and a couple of seconds. Any discussion? Please poll the commission.
Briscoe,
Yes.
Gomez,
Yes.
Harris,
Yes.
Mayfield,
Yes.
Ramos. Vickers,
Yes.
Wade,
Yes.
Borderoot.
Yes, motion carries. We recommend approval. And finally, item number 15, Z-20-22. What is city staff's recommendation in this case?
Yes, sir. This is a public hearing on request from Jerry Crenshaw at property located at 301 and 325 South 6th Street to rezone from M2 and C5 to C4. We mailed out 49 notices on this one and had 0 return. Planning Services recommends approval of the zone change request based on the following findings. Proposed zoning is conformance with the land use component of the comprehensive plan and Imagine Waco plan for greater downtown. 2, the existing public infrastructure is adequate to propose uses allowed in the C4 zoning district. 3, the area has been transitioning from industrial uses to commercial mixed uses. And 4, there is C4 zoning in the vicinity of subject property.
All right, is the applicant or his or her representative available and willing to speak on behalf of this application? Is there anyone here willing to speak in favor of? Oh, yes, sir. Would you like to speak? You would just state your name and address.
Yeah, David Pollock, a colleague of Jerry Crenshaw. We're out of Addison, 16,800 West Grove Drive. I have no comment other than if you had questions, that's all.
Any commission members have questions? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone here who would also like to speak in favor of this application? And is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to this application? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do we have a motion?
I make a motion that we approve the request to change the zoning from M2 and C5 to C4 based on the findings and conclusions of staff.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? If not, please poll the commission.
Yes.
Gomez. Yes. Harris. Yes. Mayfield.
Yes.
Ramos.
Yes.
Vickers. Yes. Wade. Borderoot.
Yes. Carries, and it goes as a recommendation of approval to City Council. City staff, do we have any further business this evening? All right. Hearing none, we are adjourned. Thank you.